Hi, I am Ronald Zen Alves, and I'm another Bajan. So life for me was, I guess it was interesting. It was eventful. I was the only boy of four siblings, growing in a house of six in total, and the only boy. So that was interesting. I definitely got one hell of a female perspective on life. Um, I grew up struggling with I don't know if fitting in is the right term. Struggling with being accepted and being good enough on everybody else's standard. So I feel like I can remember early in my life where it looked like I wasn't good enough to be on people's radars. And I specifically remember it was a composition competition. So we had to write a composition about a coconut tree. And I remember feeling like I never win anything. All of my friends, all of my families, everybody's walked out with talking about things that they won, and I never won anything. And I really want to win this competition. And so I was just supposed to write an essay about the coconut tree, and I remember my mom and I doing a whole bunch of research for about 2 days. And I specifically remember learning that coconut water helped you to flush the kidneys and helped to reduce the risk of cancer. And I ended up winning that competition. And I felt like that was where something sparked in me and said, I just really need to want to do anything bad enough, and I'll be able to do it. And I couldn't turn that off after that. So from there, every time that I entered, I legit wanted to win. I always wanted to be the best. And then going into secondary school, I had braces in first form. I was the super fat kid. And I went to Queen's College, and I was the ghetto boy going to Queen's College, so it really felt like I didn't belong, in a sense. And then you get to class and you see all the other kids and you hear the other kids speak and they're talking about their lives, and you know what kids do. We can sit down and look at what kind of bike this body got on or what kind of shoes this body got on. I saw a lot of, I don't know if I belong here. And so at a very early part of my secondary school time, I felt like I needed to prove that I belong here. But I was the boy from the ghetto. So in my misguided eyes as a boy, I felt like I had to be the baddest boy at the school for people to know that I'm here. So instantly, it's like when you walk, people think about going to prison and they think I'm gonna walk in and look for the biggest, meanest guy, beat him up, and then nobody else is gonna mess with me. So I walk into school and I wait for the bully to bully me. And then I deal with him. And that sets a precedent, and it says, let's not play with this guy. So secondary school became, establish yourself as somebody to be taken seriously. And I think I did that in the wrong ways up until I got to senior school. And that's when I realized, no, you're doing nonsense, because when you're done school, all of these friends that you got who also come from, a well-off life, like they got something to turn to if they don't do well at school. But if you don't do well at school, you ain't got nothing to fall back on. Like, you ain't come from one of them families, so then you'd better do better in life. And in fourth form, that's what happened. I changed that around. Then took the academics a lot more seriously. I started to pay a lot more attention, applied myself, and was able to make the honor roll on graduating. Actually, I remember I had a report card on what my friends fret me for the entire summer about how my report card looked like a Christmas tree. because it was full of like blue ink with red circles, and it was funny to everybody, and I laughed, in front of everybody, but I did sit and realize, like you failing at everything, and when you literally fail every subject, it's not like I would walk around proudly, I fail at everything, but it really wasn't something to feel proud about. And so something clicked in me over that vacation, and I felt like once I came back, it was a different man, it was a different mission, and it was then to just make sure that you're recognized, but you're recognized because you just as good as everybody else here. So yeah, the very first time I ever actually attended a speech day, because at Queen's College, if you're not on that honor roll or you're not within a certain age group, you don't go to speech day. So the very first time I ever attended it, it was the very last one I could have attended, but it was important enough to matter at that point. I remember in first form noticing that there was a room in the back of the school that the door was always locked, and it had these windows that one of the panes in the windows was like sprained so I could see through it, and I would always like peep through to see what's going on in this room. And one day I could see that it had weights in the room, and this room was the school's gym, and I was like, the school got a gym? I didn't even know the school got a gym. And it was just an old room that had a couple of old rusty weights in it and 2 or 3 machines, but nobody used to use the room. And I begged the PE teacher to allow me to use the room. And he always told me I was too young. So when I turned 13, he said I had to be 13 to be able to use it. And I remember when I turned 13, knocking on that door and said, "Sir, can you use it now?" And he said yes, and that became my block. That became my hangout spot at the school. That was every single lunchtime, immediately after school. If you wanted to find me, it was in that gym. So the gym became my block, and that became the beginning, and I guess the first real physical transformation. So my body moved from fat kid to ripped kid in a summer vacation, basically. So 1 year, it was almost a complete transformation. And I had also started boxing the first Saturday of that year. I think that was 2003. And from there, boxing became my passion. It became a defining characteristic when you speak about Ronald Alves. If you knew me, you knew how passionate I was about boxing. And so when I left school, I went straight into the Barbados Defense Force, and I joined their sports program because I saw it as an opportunity for me to work and make some money, because I needed to, because I didn't come from the families that I didn't have to. But it was still a program that would allow me to study, so I could also give mommy and daddy what they want and get an education. And then I'd also be able to do the thing that I love doing and box. So to me, that just seemed like a no-brainer. Like the best thing I could do at that time was join the army, get some money, beat up people, and get education all at the same time. So I spent the next 5 years with the Barbados Defense Force sports program, and it was a blast. I definitely learned a lot about myself in that time. I pushed my limits. I saw my body at its best. I saw my skill at its best. I had received a lot of different awards. I got on the Sportsman of the Year for the sports program, Sportsman of the Year for the BDF, Boxer of the Year. Like it was a time where I was achieving and I was thriving, and I felt like I knew at that time what I wanted to do in my life, which was to be a professional fighter someday. And then the reality of being a Barbadian hit, and it's not as easy for us here because we don't have access to the resources that internationally a person who wants to be a fighter would have. And so I had to come down eventually to make a real decision and say, you know what, the fights aren't paying the bills, and I needed to do that. And at that time, though I had the education that I got through the sports program, so I completed a bachelor's degree, associate's degree, and I started to do my bachelor's up until this point. And then life just got so real, and I had to take a break from UE, and I never got back to UE to finish that degree. I joined the police force after leaving UE and the army, and then I spent the next 5 years in the police force. And then that's where I realized that I was living my life for everybody but me. And I was trying to be successful by everybody's standards but mine own. And so it was a day that should have been a good day, and everything was going well, and I'm sitting on a vehicle thinking about my life and realize this cannot be it. I wake up every day to a job that I don't feel what I used to feel when I was boxing, when I come to this job. And because of it, there's a huge part of me that's missing, and this cannot be it. And I knew I needed to find passion again. I needed to find life again. Leaving the force was a big step. I was thinking and working on writing a book, and I still writing. We still add to it, but I call that chapter the leap, because I used to say everybody wants to be successful, but nobody really wants to take the risks that'll get you there. Everybody wants to fly, but nobody wants to jump. But the truth is, you're never gonna get enough wings and enough wind under your wings to give you that flight if you don't take that leap. And you gotta take that leap and believe that you can actually take flight. And some people will hit the ground, and I fell very hard, very fast for a very long time. But I feel like finally there's enough wind beneath my wings now, and I can start to feel the lifts. And I haven't hit, rock bottom as yet, and so there's still all the hope in the world that we could continue and we could keep going and actually fly. But taking that leap was a difficult one, and doing it without making a plan, it's not the advice I would give to a person. I wouldn't say just realize this is not for you and get up and leave. But in my situation, I felt like it was very, very close to being a life or death situation, and I had to make the choice that I had to make at the time that I had to make it. And the struggle was not easy. It's definitely not an easy task to be an entrepreneur. It then had to be, I was now responsible for my own survival. I am now responsible for my own outcome. Whatever happens in the long run, in the end, that was on me. So I really had to make peace with the fact that I was about to take my life into my own hands and try to make a future of it. And the first thing that I did was barbering. I had always liked cutting hair all the time as if coming up through the military and the police, I ain't had a choice but to cut my hair frequently, and so that would have made it expensive over time. And so it was easier for me to just cut my own. And I started there, and I would watch my barbers and realize, there's killing what these guys doing, and these guys got potential to make some money. So I left, and I got into a barbering course, and I got certified as a barber. And there's a book that I read called The Alchemist, and there's a line in the book that says, when a person really wants something, all the universe conspires to help them to get it. And I remember very shortly after getting the certificate, and by very shortly it could be a matter of days, maybe a week at max, I was driving in a car thinking about how great it would be if I could just get my own barber shop and not have to go work for somebody else. And the guy who was driving the vehicle then asked at the back, he says, anybody know anybody who looking for a barber shop or who want to open a barber shop? And I just think to myself, this could be real. And then I say, you know what, I just made all of these life changes and this is what it looks like when an opportunity presents itself, so take it. And I opened my first barber shop. And it turned, I mean, ultimately it failed, but I learned what I had to learn from trying that venture, because it was the very first business that I'd owned on my own. So it was my first time realizing all along when you walk into any establishment, it's nice and clean, but if you're anybody that cleaning it and you're the owner, it doesn't get clean. So at day 2, when I pushed the door and I realized there's still dust on the floor. Oh wait, I don't have a janitor now. That's my responsibility. Oh crap, there's a bathroom. That's gonna need to be cleaned all the time. I either need to hire a janitor or that's my responsibility. And so it shifted my perspective on what it meant to be an entrepreneur or a business owner. There are little things for the day-to-day running of whatever business that you may not think about in the planning stages, but when you get into it, you get exposed to those things. So for me, I was able to take away a lot from that barbershop. That was Zen Life Barbershop and Salon. And what was also happening is I had always been artistic as a boy, always been very creative. I never thought that it was going to be jewelry or that I would be making jewelry, but somehow I ended up making jewelry again. And what I found was happening was more people were turning up at my barber shop on a daily basis to buy my jewelry than were turning up to get a haircut. Even though people were coming to get their hair cut and people were happy when they got their hair cut, I felt like everything was telling me to pay attention to the fact that something else is really working in your favor now. And that jewelry was dealing with crystals, and that was everything I was passionate about at the time as well. And so again, another no-brainer, and I just said, okay. I've never been the guy who's had an issue with saying I'll take a few steps back in order to take a few more steps forward. So I shut the barbershop down and I decided I'm gonna put more time and effort into Zen Life crystals, which would be the jewelry. And around that time, I also then felt like I needed to get my body back. So I had a daughter for my 30th, and I remember feeling like it's already a miracle that I'm even alive to see 30, because I really didn't think I would live long enough to see 30. I know that I'm here. I want to have the best body I can have, and I want to be the best me in every way that I can be for this little girl now. And that journey then to get my body back in the way that I knew it could be kind of set me back into the passion of boxing. And more people started asking me to teach them to box. And then I got aligned with Level Up Gym. I started to teach the boxing classes there and realized I got a real knack for it, because not just are people coming to me, but I'm actually able to see people leave better than they came, and leave with a confidence that they didn't have when they started, and leave with a new skill set that they didn't have when they started. And I loved the way that felt. So I kept doing that, and I kept doing that until eventually now today that's become the main thing that I focus on, because I think life does this for us, and it comes as a cycle, and it'll keep reminding us of who we are in the end. My passion right now is in making a dream that I have for boxing in Barbados come alive. What has it been like being a daddy? See how I smile? That's legit the best feeling right now I think that I have. I'm somebody that loves to love. I love a lot. Like, I'm a lover and a fighter, but I'm a lover. So when I think about fatherhood, one thing is the only time in my life I felt like every single day, every time I see her, every time I look at her, I could fall a little bit deeper. I could feel a little more proud. I could feel happy that I could be the reason that this beautiful thing exists. And I definitely allow her to teach me a lot. So I watch her in ways where I try to understand what's happening. And I felt like from even before she could speak, where she would be trying to communicate, you know, I'm hungry, or I'm scared, or I'm miserable, or I'm cold, or my stomach hurts, or it's so many different things that they could be trying to say to you that you can't get to understand. And so for me, trying to understand that was important, and I'd be watching from, I guess, that perspective. And I feel like I've learned so much about humans from watching my daughter grow. So it's expressions of pure emotion, and it's almost like we think that schizophrenic, like today, like in 1 minute they have one mood, and the very next second it's moved from tears to laughter, and it's genuine expression. And what I started to realize was a lot of the things that we do because we feel these emotions, but we've allowed ourselves to let the world dictate the way that we should express it, or that we view ourselves and the fact that we feel it. And children don't have that. So children don't have the censorship. There's nothing that says to the child, don't say that. They'll just say it because it's true. They don't stop and think, at those early ages, I'm gonna tell a lie for telling a lie's sake. Because it's already such a gift that I can speak. I'm just gonna always speak what I feel or experience. And fatherhood has helped me to look at that in her and then apply it to life in general, and see how a little bit of love goes a long way with every interaction, with every person, with every situation that you get into. Kind of, if that was your daughter, would you still want to slap that head? Would you still want to, can I now relate a little bit better? Can I understand where a person is coming from a little bit more, because I now have a sense of empathy that didn't exist at this depth prior to having that child? We always hear people say, when you get a child, life is going to change. Your perspective is going to change. And as a man growing, I thought that I understood it. But it is only when you actually hold your child in your hand. And it's not the same when you hold your best friend's child or your sister's child. It's not the same. It's something you only experience when you get your own. But the moment that you feel it, you instantly know, this is now the reason for life, and everything is changed, and my perspective has to change. And it makes life worth living a bit more, for real. For real. So I'll do fatherhood all the time. I like it. I think a big part of this year has been being able to just kind of understand what all the noise has been for so long. That's chaos and misery that I don't think people can understand who don't experience it. So we're still in the process of getting the official diagnosis. It's an expensive one, and it takes some time. But it wasn't even just the ADHD. There were a few other things that are happening upstairs that I was wrestling with, that I didn't know or understand. And that struggle had often led to me in moments making decisions and then thinking about, I ain't even really made that decision. Why would I do that? Why did I do that? If you've never found yourself in that position where you've done a thing and then you really are not at peace with yourself about the thing that you've done, but there's no way to really explain to the other person why you wouldn't be at peace with the thing that you decided to do yourself, unless the other person can understand that you decided to do it, but you didn't decide to. It's strange, but it was a reality that was chaotic, for lack of a better word. And because I struggled with being able to express it, a lot of it was just happening in my head. And because I am an overachiever in the way that I do, I was able to fly under the radar for most people. At a very, very early age, my mother was able to pick up that I was having problems expressing and controlling my anger. So I was thrusted into like counseling and therapy and for anger management issues. And really all that did for me at that age was teach me how to say exactly what I thought they would want to hear in order to be able to not have to come to these sessions again. Boxing was where I learned real discipline. It was in boxing where when I was struck and I got upset, the more upset I got, the more I got hit, and the more I couldn't see the hits coming because I was so blinded by my own rage that I was just trying to hurt the other person without any real strategy to it. And after getting my own butt kicked enough times, I realized the only way I'm gonna get this particular guy beat is if I keep my cool and pay attention to what it is that he's doing. And eventually I was able to do it. And once I realized, yo, it's working, then I implemented it more and more and more and more and more into it until even now I feel like I teach a style of boxing that encompasses just that, which is why I use the name Zen Life Fitness, because boxing is a sport that holds a lot of tension and aggression, but the way that I do it is I'm gonna teach you to stay as relaxed as possible the whole time. So in the middle of all of this fire, when everybody else is all worked up, my guys are gonna be the ones that are cool and calm and comfortable in that environment, because we are learning how much more beneficial it is to find that balance, to find peace in the middle of all the chaos. It just stands out. So that's been life inside my head for the entire time without really ever understanding it. And what pushed me to eventually get to, I guess, the diagnosis, I went through a couple of episodes where I disassociated, I guess, where I done an action, and then after doing the action, been made aware that I did the action, and upon being made aware that I did the action, have no recollection of doing the action. And that's what really showed me that, yo, something is wrong, because I don't know that I did that, and I don't like that I don't know that I did that. So no one sent me there. I went myself. I realized there's a need for help now, and I don't, like, something is definitely wrong, so go get some help. And in talking to, I guess, the professionals, then references started to come, and I didn't ever really go talking about that. I really went just, like, there's these personal things in life that are happening, and I'm thinking that these are what the problems are, and I'm not able to see that most of the things that we do because of the perspective that we look at the situation through. And so if that perspective changes, so too will your behavior in a lot of cases. But I didn't have that extra perspective on my life, and that's what I think therapy did. So I'm glad now to see more and more people are stepping up and speaking out about the fact that mental health is a real issue. It's a work in progress, but I am optimistic now about exploring and healing through that and from that. I am Ronald Zain Els, and I am a father, a lover, a fighter, a friend, a therapist, a trainer, a boxer, a artist, a dancer, a singer, a designer, an actor, And I'm just another Bajan.